Hello, you are listening to another episode of Popcorn Podcast with Leigh and Tim, where we are reviewing Black Widow. Of course, all the latest movie and trailer news as well, so let's get into it, Leigh. I'm Tim Ifland, movie buff.
And I'm Leigh Livingstone, entertainment journalist.
And we love to talk all things movies, apparently for 6 seasons.
6 whole seasons, Tim. 2 and a bit years?
2 and a bit years, around that time, yeah. Look, I don't know. I feel like it's meant to be. We're returning with the first episode of season 6 with the return of the MCU after so long, with Black Widow kicking off phase 4. So I cannot wait to dive into this movie with you, Leigh.
We should probably mention as well that we're in lockdown in Sydney, so it's a challenging start to season 6, isn't it?
It is, but we're doing things a little bit different. I've got like a ring light setup going on. I've got Leigh like beautifully lit up in this halo in front of me. So we're trying to make it feel like we're in the room together, in the room where it happens, as is said in Hamilton.
All right, Tim, let's jump into Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff finally gets her swan song in Black Widow. The spy thriller is the first film in Marvel's Phase 4 and depicts what happens to Natasha in the period between Civil War and Infinity War, when she confronts the darker parts of her mysterious past.
Now, the film is directed by Australian Kate Shortland, who has previously directed a film called Berlin Syndrome. It's from a screenplay by Eric Pearson and a story by Jack Schaefer, who wrote WandaVision, as well as Ned Benson.
The movie, of course, stars Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, with Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, David Harbour and Ray Winston joining her on this adventure.
Love this cast. So good.
Oh, yes.
Now, Leigh, how did you feel about that Marvel Studios opening happening when you hit play on Disney Plus?
I always get emotional. When the Marvel, credits start rolling, I get so emotional. I just love it. The film picks up, obviously, when Natasha is in hiding and the Avengers have split, for that little bit of background. So it's a nice little insight into what she was doing during this time, because there was a question hanging over that. What I really like, straight off the bat, is that Marvel is continuing to change things up stylistically here. Natasha's story and her past is so dark, isn't it? And what has been done to her and the things that she's done to other people. So it needed a grittier style than we've seen previously. Do you think that was effective?
Oh, very, very effective. I love that the tone and the genre that it was playing in, like a spy espionage film, kind of a la James Bond, wouldn't you think? But with some kick-ass women to boot.
Yeah, definitely. A real spy thriller. And Natasha has always been a mystery in the films, hasn't she? But they've always alluded to this rich backstory that she has. And I think that's given us an advantage as an audience of seeing a complete story come to life that we know almost nothing about. That's great.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that one. It digs so deep into her past, like you said, like for the first time. I think Natasha, the character of Black Widow, has been in the MCU like 6 previous times. And across that franchise, they've only scratched the surface in understanding who she is and where she came from, like the Red Room and Budapest and all these things that are always referenced throughout the MCU. And I guess that's in keeping with her story. She's very mysterious and held back, right? But here, you finally you lift the lid on who Natasha Romanoff is. And
the movie unfolded in a really organic way, didn't it? It doesn't hit you over the head with the details, or at least I thought it didn't. How did you feel about that?
No, I liked its opening. It kind of added a little bit of, intrigue and mystery. We open up in Ohio in 1995 and you kind of get a flavour of her like suburban life with her family, and that introduces you to a list of characters that, return later on in the film. I thought that was a really nice way to open up the movie and got you thinking about where this is going.
I mean, as this series goes on and the franchise keeps expanding, the questions that need answering and the holes to plug are just becoming exponential, aren't they? So it's getting tougher and tougher to really weave in these stories. But I think Black Widow did a great job of answering those questions without retconning. It fit. It felt natural to me.
Yeah. I was going to ask you 3 questions just to lead on from that. Do you think it works as the first film to kick off phase 4 of the MCU? Do you think it works in that context?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it's not setting anything up. It's not adding anything to the ongoing storyline, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just a nice little wrap up, isn't it, for Natasha?
I mean, it does kind of set up something very, very subtle, which, this is a spoiler-free review, guys, so we'll leave that up to you to enjoy and take in.
And, of course, it's in a post-credit scene, isn't it?
Of course, it goes with the territory of an MCU film, you're right. Okay, so to lead on to that, do you think it delivers as a valuable piece to the wider Marvel story then? So it's kind of like just slotted in, but do you think it delivered?
Yes, definitely. I think it's valuable. I think people have been waiting for this story for a long time, and I think they delivered on giving a really satisfying look into who Natasha is.
Yeah, I guess you answered my third question to you is, do you think it does justice to Natasha Romanoff's character finally?
Yeah. Completely. I completely think it does. I mean, as an audience, our investment is in Natasha and finding out her story in this film. It's not in her battle against this villain or setting up more of the MCU. And I think it really works in that purpose. But it did mean that we didn't get a fully formed bad guy or much of an emotional growth for her character. Does that bother you? Do you think that matters?
To be honest, I think it does matter. Look, a lot of films have trouble in nailing the villain. It's always the thing that kind of falls to the wayside sometimes, and potentially that happened in this movie. You kind of had Ray Winston as a villain and then also Taskmaster. And so do you feel that they weren't fully developed or understood as much because there was too much else going on? We needed to really dig deep into Natasha and her old family life and who she was.
Yeah. I mean, who was this guy? What's he been doing? Where's he been? Is his story going to appear again in the MCU somewhere in the future? These kind of things, I thought, well, if it's just a standalone movie, which it seems like it is, it doesn't really give you that depth of character.
Yeah. I think that also brings me to say that at times the story was a little heavy and convoluted, and I feel like maybe a second viewing might help make sense of a few things, and maybe part of that is understanding the villains a little bit more, just kind of like what's their purpose in this story, be it that it carries on to future films or not. It can just live within this little echo chamber of Black Widow, standalone spy espionage thriller.
And see, I bounced back and forward about whether it mattered or not because, as I said, the investment is in Natasha. People are coming to see this movie for Natasha to find out her story, find out what she's been doing during that period, and hit two birds with one stone and also get her past.
Yeah.
So I think it did a good job of that in itself. One thing I really want to call out that I loved about this film was the colour palette, the production design, especially in the climax. It really leans into that dominating red for the communist world she came from and her character's signature colour. It was beautiful, stunning. I loved it.
Oh, the red. I'm so glad you called that out. It was such a big character and, dare I say, a red thread throughout the film. Yeah, it was just stunning, and it certainly imposed that sense of danger, but yes, her connection to like communist Russia. It was just a really nice addition to the film for its like aesthetic, which is holy shit, just a stunning movie to look at, right?
Oh yeah, beautiful. Kate Shortland did an amazing job, the director, and she's Aussie. Yeah, go Aussies.
Aussie representation. God, she really was able to tap into that drama, that family drama aspect, as much as the action and effects and all that sort of thing you come to know and love. And I think one thing that shone through for her as a director was playing into that MCU humor.
Yep.
And I think the whole dysfunctional family was like ripe territory for that sort of MCU humor to play in, right?
Yeah. Speaking of the family, I love Florence Pugh. Can I just say that? I just love everything she does. Fighting with My Family, Midsummer, Little Women. She's just going from strength to strength, and as we've seen in this film, will continue to do so. It's bloody amazing.
I'm so excited to see her in like a blockbuster tentpole movie like this.
Yeah.
Because we've seen her play dramatic roles like you've just listed, but she brings such a unique perspective and so much, what would you call it, charisma to the role. Like she's just, you can't look away. And her and Scarlett working together, it's just such a shame that we won't get that again, because obviously the fate of Black Widow's character in Endgame was that she died. So, but heck, they ticked all the boxes for that kind of sister dynamic in this movie.
In terms of chemistry, I felt and believed the sisterly bond between the two of them. It was fantastic. Let's talk about David Harbour as Red Guardian, going back to the humour. He is the Russian counterpart to Captain America and is basically the comic relief in this film, but he's also the emotional anchor. Did you notice that? He could do both. He flipped from both quite easily, and I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, one moment he was like, trying to live in the past, the glory days of him as like the Russian Captain America. And then on the other foot, he was just one big dad joke.
Yeah.
And then on another foot, he was, this emotional anchor in this kind of what is his role as the father figure to Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson's character. And what does that mean to him and to them? And there's some really great like territory in there that was explored. It was, he had a lot of fun in that role, I think.
Oh, you could tell it was coming through on the screen for sure. Can I also call out the performance of young Natasha, who was Eva Anderson, and we'll be seeing her in the upcoming Peter Pan and Wendy film. But she is also Mila Jovovich's daughter.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
You could see that on the face.
Yeah, definitely. Cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
I was really impressed by her performance. What did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
She has an incredible emotional range. She had to get quite angry quite fast. Her physicality was great. Obviously, her mother, Miller, is an incredibly iconic action star. So, it's part of who she is, I suppose, in her DNA. But she made a big impact in a very short period of time.
And also taking on a character that's so recognisable. We know so much about Natasha. We've formed these opinions about her in our head over the last decade. And to take that on as a child and show where she's come from, she did a great job.
One of the little touches that I liked was that her, as a child, had a different hairstyle. So like every time Black Widow shows up in an MCU movie, she has a new hairstyle, be it a blonde bob or curly red hair. And then her as a child, she had like this blue or purple streaks through her hair. And I thought that was a nice little nod to the fact that ever since she was a child, she's always wanted to mix up her hairstyle. I thought that was a really nice addition to the character.
And there's a few more nice threads that have been pulled from future MCU films. Future for this film, but past for what we've seen. And these threads are running through the movie, and it was wonderful to see that, like the vest being pulled from Infinity War, the vest that she wears in Infinity War. It was like, oh, that's how you got the vest. That's cool. All these nice little touches.
Yeah, that was a really nice touch, and it came from a place of incredible, clarity or closure for Natasha's character in, reconnecting with her family and her sister. And then, she carries that literal vest. She carries her sister through like this huge Infinity War saga.
Yeah.
And I just loved that. So yeah, nice one to call that out. It was just, I love that thought behind it.
Let's talk about the action and special effects. We can't talk about an MCU film without talking about that. I really love the stunt choreography in this film. I've always liked Natasha's fighting style, and it's grounded in her training and abilities and physicality. It just feels right for her as a character. What did you think?
Oh yeah, the hand-to-hand combat was epic in this movie. And Natasha's always been really, really badass, but this kind of was like turned up a notch and a half.
Yeah.
They never held back on kicking the shit out of the stunt team. And there were several times where I like gasped because I was shocked at what they were putting their bodies through. But heck, there was so much commitment to getting those shots, and it was just amazing.
It didn't feel as big budget as other Marvel films. There's a lot more in-camera effect work than CGI, but it certainly didn't feel cheap.
Oh no, certainly didn't feel cheap. I think the third act, you kind of got more of that MCU effects heavy set piece and everything. But then certainly, the front half was much more in camera. But I feel like that works for the sort of tone that this movie was going for, especially with all the car and bike chases in the streets and the fights in the safe house and stuff. Like, you had to do that in camera for it to work and feel authentic.
Yeah, I completely agree. Speaking of the streets and all that kind of jazz, let's talk about the locations.
Oh my gosh. Can we list them off? Ohio, Cuba, Budapest, Morocco, Norway.
Yeah.
Like, holy heck, what a great visual palette for this movie.
I have to say, I got so excited when I saw Norway. I instantly recognized where Natasha was hiding out. And, I should explain for our listeners that my husband is from Norway, so I'm very familiar with the country. And as soon as we saw it, we were like, yay, Norway.
That would have felt really good.
It was. It's beautiful, beautiful country and stunning on film.
Yeah, beautiful. There were 64 set pieces built for this film, which is an extraordinary achievement, and they clearly spared no expense in that space about those tangible set pieces for the actors to live and breathe in. 64, Leigh. It's extraordinary.
Oh, Tim.
Let's say it again. 64.
It was just stunning in its execution, for sure.
And I think that with the genre of its spy espionage, that's what James Bond does.
Yeah.
He travels all around the world. And I think they were like, well, Black Widow can do that too. And so her and the team, went everywhere, and it was just great to see and sink your teeth into that sort of story mechanic.
Well, speaking of James Bond, what's Scarlett Johansson doing next? Female James Bond?
Oh yeah, let's campaign it now. Let's start the campaign. It's real. Let's gain momentum.
Are we ready to wrap up Black Widow, Tim?
We absolutely are.
I mean, we could talk about this film for days, but it's hard to do without spoiling it. So we'll leave you with this taster, and you can come and jump on socials and tell us what you think about it.
Oh, please, we really want to hear what you have to say. Well, in me wrapping it up, Black Widow nails it as a spy, espionage, thriller and psychological family drama spectacular. Scarlett and Florence are perfection and can kick my ass any day of the week. But despite the amount of fun I had, I couldn't get past the baggage that came with it. Where was this film in phase 3? I'm just going to say that out loud. Right. However, having said that, it didn't feel tacked on to me and positions itself with great conviction within the context and timeline of the MCU. Black Widow finally got what she deserved, and her legacy is now complete. I'm going to rate Black Widow 4 popcorn kernels.
Ooh, you make me want to change my rating now. I really struggled with this one because I loved it so much. What makes Marvel movies so great is the level of care and detail that goes into building this world. No detail is too small, even right down to a simple vest. The characters weren't as richly fleshed out as I would have hoped for, but we're here for Natasha, for her to have her big moment, one that she and we have been waiting a decade for. Black Widow was a satisfying dive into an unknown place in time that also gave us insight into her backstory, and I was just over the moon, Tim, to finally be able to see it. I'm giving Black Widow 3.5 popcorn kernels.
Well, there you go, guys. Black Widow is in cinemas right now, as well as on Disney Plus with Premiere Access.
Make sure you check it out. On that wonderful note, Tim, I think it's time to end the first episode of Season 6 of Popcorn Podcast. We did it.
We are so grateful that you jumped back on this bandwagon with us. We have a jam-packed Season 6 in the works. We've got so much awesome stuff coming, don't we, Leigh, over the next couple of weeks at least.
The second half of the year especially is stacked, guys. Get your butts to the cinema.
Movies are back, baby. Well, we reviewed Black Widow, which is in cinemas right now, as well as on Disney Plus with Premiere Access and a pre-existing subscription to the service. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening.
We'll catch you next time. If you enjoy our episodes, head over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe. While you're there, we would love you to rate us and leave a review. You can also find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Alexa, and where all good podcasts are found.